CRTV News, ici, toute l'info.
The head of state, Paul Biya, reaches out to the families of 7 children killed in the school massacre in KUMBA. Minister Paul Atanganje hands over the assistance package and lights 7 candles at the school in memory of the dead. Over 400 companies have been banned from the public contract sector as the non-completion of projects is a cankerworm to be addressed. Experts call for strict control before and during execution of projects. CRTV's personnel Charles Abosolo-Oba grabs the RFI Ghislain Dupont and Claude Vellon Prize, the first ever for a Cameroonian journalist for his radio piece on polygamy, dialogue and communication. Good evening and thanks for joining us. Those were the headlines of the 7:30 News. Thanks for being with us.
Each of us must comply with the measures that have been taken.
We begin our 30-minute newscast with government assistance to the families who lost their children in the school massacre in KUMBA. The Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganje, is in KUMBA to hand over the head of state's relief package to the bereaved. 7 candles were also lit at the Mother Francisca International Bilingual Academy in memory of the murdered children. Ebenezer Akanga is on special assignment in the Southwest region. He now reports.
Fiango KUMBA, where the school children were shot and killed by separatist terrorists, the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganje, who is on a visit to KUMBA on esteemed instructions of the head of state, posed an act full of emotions and symbolism.
These are 7 candles representing the 7 young Cameroonians who died. We are asking their souls to rest in peace, that the strength of the prayers should render justice to these criminals who have killed young Cameroonians.
At a meeting with parents of the children that held in the conference hall of the divisional office for Meme, the minister once again conveyed the deep condolences of the head of state to the bereaved families and wish of quick recovery for the injured. Paul Atanganje handed assistance from the head of state to parents whose children were killed in the school attack for burial, while the injured in hospitals will be treated free of charge. The remains of the dead children will be coffined on Thursday, 5th of November 2020 in KUMBA.
The funeral programs for the majority of the slain pupils will begin this Wednesday, and collective homage by the state, administrative authorities and the population has been fixed for Thursday. Ahead of the requiem and other rites, the parents of the children who have received assistance from the state continue to express gratitude in spite of their grief. Details in this report with Kange Williams Wasaloko.
Massacre that left 7 innocent school children dead and several wounded. Here comes the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganje, again to the scene of action. Upon firm instructions from the head of state, President Paul Biya, Paul Atanganje continues to pour consolation messages from the state, as well as handing financial assistance for the burial of the victims of the October 24 massacre, a gesture which is highly appreciated by the families of the victims.
We are very grateful and thankful also. We pleaded for the parents to be liberated. The ministers have agreed that is going to liberate those parents so that they can partake of the burial of their students and children.
As the families prepare for the burial come Thursday, they are comforted that the state and the entire nation shares in their grief.
And the women's wing of the CPDM continues to condemn this barbaric attack. Once again, they say defenseless civilians have been unjustifiably attacked by ruthless and insensitive individuals in total disrespect of the sanctity of life. It is inconceivable that innocent children who only sought to enjoy their right to education in the sacred setting of their school could be deprived of their lives or maimed for such a just and noble cause. At these sorrowful moments, the National Bureau of the WCPDM sends its most sincere condolences to the families of these children and reiterates its compassion and solidarity with the population of the Northwest and Southwest regions, so hard hit since the start of the crisis in these regions. It is signed by Madam Yao Ayisatu. Now on to our newsroom dossier tonight. We plunge into the public contract sector where there is an outrageous disregard for the terms of reference. 414 companies have been banned from vying for public contracts in Cameroon for failing to respect their engagements. Luma Slim Davies examines the measures taken by the minister delegates at the ministry at the presidency for public contracts, Ibrahim Tabamala, as well as the impact on the economy of the country.
The banning of 414 companies for failing to respect engagements on public contracts is in accordance with the prescriptions of Article 182 and 184 of the Public Contract Decree of June 2018.
All the population are waiting. When they disappear, it's not good for the country because we lose money and we don't have in front of this money the realization of the action on the field.
Abandoning contracts midway deprive the beneficiary population from enjoying the required services and make government lose huge sums of money.
We have been instructed by the head of state so that we can look at it and sanction those who are not in the good foot and then give the opportunity to those who are very competitive. They can do it for the benefit of our population.
These abandoned contracts fall within the building of roads, schools, boreholes, health centers, electricity installations, as well as provision of services. These companies face a 2-year ban and could also face judicial action.
With the number of contracts terminated by the state experiencing an exponential growth, economies recommend stricter control before the award of contracts and during the execution of works. They uphold another solution lies on the classification of companies based on the nature of their activities. Clarissa Reitakan reports that addressing fragmented projects is also primordial.
Views from analysts run along the same lines. The responsibility to guarantee the proper execution of public contracts lies with both the project owner, the state, and the contractor. Amongst the solutions put forward, therefore, are ensuring that projects are mature, without which they may end up being undervalued, synergy between administrations concerned by the works is effective, and that there are no delays in advance payments. Added to these are the need for the sovereignty of sub-commissions charged with analysis and control, doing away with micro-projects, which eventually becomes costly and time-consuming, but also budget updating, which takes into account unforeseen circumstances. Above all, professionalism is key.
Enterprise should have a very good technician, very good equipment, and the capacity to finance projects. It's important to classify them in categories.
With more and more public contracts terminated and poorly executed, opinions hold that all actors of the chain play their role with public interest and nation building at heart.
Away from the public contract sector, we take this presidential decree number 2020/656 of the 2nd of November 2020 to appoint an ambassador. The President of the Republic appoints Mr. Ndoki Victor is with effect from the date of signature of this decree, appointed Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Cameroon for the Federal Republic of Germany. It is signed by the President of the Republic, Paul Biya. And these other announcements from the Senate. The Secretary General of the Senate informs all honorable senators that the Upper House of Parliament is convened on Thursday, the 12th of November 2020 at 4 p.m. in its third ordinary session for the 2020 legislative year. It is signed Michelle Meva Mebutu. And now on to one of our running stories. The phenomenon on money trading is gaining grounds in Cameroon as many citizens are lured by offers to multiply their savings and to benefit from lofty services. These unaccounted financial gains, whose mechanisms are not often mastered by those who adhere to them, and to some of these schemes have become a source of deceit and frustration. Iwane Pole sought the opinion of some sociologists and anthropologists who explain man's desire to enrich himself.
Trading in money is a practice that entails the use of legitimate payment systems to process payments for goods or services in order to make profit. This remains the daily practice of Cameroonians in their quest to become rich overnight.
People take that risk to make money. That we call a social risk.
According to anthropologists, the attitude of man always seeking to enrich himself at all costs is an ancient practice.
When you look deeply inside our culture, you see that someone can be rich easily from witchcraft or from magical practices. It is just the modernization of what we have already in our own cultures.
Trade actors, they show money, they show cars in order to convict some people to come and do it.
Luring people into investing in something many have no idea about, but there is always a catch economists hold, one many regrettably discover when it is already too late.
16 high-level managers from CEMAC member states have ended a refresher course on best practices and management of BEAC activities. The awards were handed over to them by the Vice Governor of the Bank of Central African States, Dieudonné Evumeku, accompanied by the Director of Global Initiative Project for HEC Paris, Amel Dufault. Caroline Okier Anoma reports.
Parcours des Ménageurs is a 3-month intense program organized by BEAC in collaboration with HEC Paris, whose aim is geared at instilling best practices in high-level managers in the banking, monetary and financial sectors in the CEMAC sub-region.
This program articulated on 5 different modules, 2 on leadership and management and self-awareness. The key success of the program is co-construction, considering the specificities of each CEMAC member state.
Entirely contextualized considering the needs of modern times as well as BEAC, the 16 graduates coming from all the 6 countries of the CEMAC sub-region have benefited from training and exchanges from well-experienced and specialized professors of HEC Paris that will upgrade and enhance their skills as managers of high-level commercial bank in the CEMAC sub-region.
In Act 1 of our series of reports on culinary arts and the desire for restaurant owners to serve dishes in a traditional manner, we'll take you to some restaurants in Yaoundé in order to show their attachment to cultural values and to educate on the ancestral symbolism of some meals. Customers relish their orders on sometimes plantain leaves or calabashes. Alice Mbaye walks us through some of these eateries.
This is the traditional bamboo restaurant at Carrefour Wada, a center of attraction for customers who love consuming traditional meals.
It is very tasteful, it is appetizing. I enjoy eating from the leaf.
It is noticed for its particularity.
Their traditional meals are well prepared. The decoration of the place and the leaves in which they serve us food is very attractive.
I like the nature of the place. It is very natural and gives us the impression we're in the village. I like to come here because I enjoy my best meal, kok, which is made from dry fish and smoked meat. It is served with fufu made from cassava.
Owned by this couple from the North region, full of ambitions, they decided to make riches from Cameroon's natural resources.
I got my inspiration from a group of chiefs on the social media and adopted the Madagascan method of serving meals on leaves.
Created on the 18th of June 2020, Omaru and spouse are owners of 2 restaurants.
Still in culture, the water museum constructed by the traditional ruler of Bonanja Siga Bonjo village, His Majesty Professor Narcisse Molekombi, has been received an august guest. The president of the Quai Branly Jacques Chirac Museum in Paris, France, Emmanuel Cachereru, was at the site to appraise the cultural ingenuity of the Sawa people. Alphonse Abongo reports.
The Water Museum of the Bonanja Siga Bonjo village suspends on the right flank of the Vuri River. Inaugurated in 2018, the museum contains the material and immaterial history of the Sawa people with symbolic relics that speak volumes of Cameroon's 4 cultural zones. The museum welcomes a high-profile guest, Emmanuel Cachereru, president of the Quai Branly Jacques Chirac Museum of Paris, France.
Quite amazing, and it's a very good idea also, because its purpose is to represent and promote the cultural societies which live along the river.
The promoter of the initiative, His Majesty Professor Narcisse Molekombi, who doubles as chief of the village, says it is part of a modest move to immortalize the history and culture of his people, which could disappear over time. The ceremony brought together Sawa dignitaries, political and traditional leaders who all clad their august guest with the distinctive attribute of great notable of honor of the Bonanja Siga Bonjo village.
On to one of our top stories, CRTV's journalist Charles Abosoloba is the 2020 winner of the RFI Ghislain Dupont and Claude Verlon Scholarship for Francophone African Journalists. The 29-year-old is the first Cameroonian to grab the prize through a 3-piece minute documentary on polygamy, dialogue and communication. Clarence Azay has details from CRTV Bolova, where Charles Abosolo works.
He is young, talented and passionate about journalism, qualities that made Charles Abosolo Oba to emerge winner in the competition, which saw the participation of 258 journalists from 25 French-speaking countries on the African continent.
I'm very happy, I'm very excited to be the winner of this 2020 edition of Bourse Ghislain Dupont Claude Verlon. And this prize is that of CRTV and all Cameroon.
The work which fetched him the 2020 award of the RFI Ghislain Dupont and Claude Verlon Scholarship for Francophone African Journalists is a 3-minute radio report on dialogue and tolerance in polygamous homes in the South region.
And we know that in polygamous homes there is a lot of communication problem.
The entire staff of CRTV South has been celebrating the award.
I'm happy and very proud of Charles for his passion, for his determination and his hard work.
The scholarship is in homage to 2 French reporters murdered on November 2, 2013 in Kidal, Mali.
Out of Cameroon, more than 250 million Americans have begun to vote for their next president. So far, 90 million have cast their votes for either incumbent Republican Donald Trump or the Democratic candidate Joe Biden. Ahead of tomorrow's final voting day, November 3, Charles Abonnet looks at the realities of the United States' complex electoral system.
At the heart of the American electoral system, the Electoral College, a political mathematical equation of the United States Congress seats. They decide who becomes president through the magic number of 270, despite the fact that you may win the popular vote of the roughly 250 million voters in the country. This was the case with Clinton 4 years ago, and the game is played on states called the swing states in American electoral culture. The West Coast, California, for instance, and the East Coast, New York included, usually goes blue, meaning Democrat, and the Midwest, plus some South states like Florida and Georgia, are Republican safe zones. The dynamics this year will be worked on the severity of the coronavirus on the American elector for either a President Joe Biden or Donald Trump.
Away from politics to education, 546 students with outstanding results in the 2019-2020 certificate examinations have been awarded scholarships for excellence. The benefactor is La Fondation Mentendu, whose patron, Minister Jean-Ernest Massenangale Bibehe, encouraged the students to remain assiduous. Iwane Pole reports that the gesture was also extended to orphans in Edea.
Association known as Fondation La Main Tendue, in its mission to promote excellence and assisting the underprivileged, this time awarded scholarships to 546 outstanding pupils and students who passed the 2020 certificate examinations.
I'm thanking those people that gave us the gift. They have given me 30,000 francs as scholarship. With it I can buy my books. Thank you to Mr. Ngale Bibe for his assistance.
On the occasion, orphans also receive food items and didactic materials. The goodwill gesture of Fondation La Main Tendue has become a yearly event as sons and daughters of the Sanaga Maritime Division, led by their patron, Minister Jean-Ernest Ngale Bibe, are committed to help the needy in society.
The wearing of face masks in public places will be mandatory until further notice.
How possible is it to recover from the coronavirus without being in isolation or being hospitalized? Difficult to tell if you're not of the medical field. Tonight, we are told that it can be attained if only a number of health precautions are taken and respected. Baldwin Samuel and his guest, Dr. Joseph Fokam, are at the Public Health Emergency Operations Center for more. Hello, Baldwin.
Good evening to you, Esther Kima. I should say the fear phobia has been what has been characterizing most persons with COVID-19 symptoms these days in the country, quite scared to go to the different hospitals and have themselves treated properly. Most of them prefer relying on auto-medication. As you already asked, how possible is it for an individual to recover from the coronavirus without being hospitalized? We discussed that with Dr. Joseph Fokam. He is a virologist. Good evening to you, doctor.
Good evening, Bali.
Simply explain to us, medically speaking, is it possible to recover from the coronavirus without being hospitalized or get into an isolation center?
Effectively, when we look at the physiopathology of coronavirus infection, we realize there are three major phases during this infection. The very first phase is the virus replicative phase. During this phase, we have a high viral replication. If the immune system is in place, then we are going to control the virus. But if there is a failure of the immune system in controlling the infection, then we are going to move now at the pulmonary phase where people are beginning to have cough. And if the immune system fails in subsiding the virus, then we are now going to move at the inflammatory phase where now there is cytokine storm, where there is a systemic syndrome and a high risk of mortality. But in the case of Cameroon, most of our patients are able to control the virus at the replicative phase because many of us we have a high immune system. And this is the reason why we generally have just mild or even asymptomatic cases in the population. We represent almost 90% of our cases.
And finally, is it possible for an individual who recovered from the virus to get reinfected without still being hospitalized?
Effectively, nowadays, we have cases in Cameroon. People who were infected during the first phase of the epidemic around the month of May or June. Now they are coming back with a second infection. And this is because the immune system for coronavirus doesn't protect for long. It's about 2 to 3 months. Almost all of them will lose their protection. And so there is a high risk of reinfection. And because of this, we believe even if you have been infected, remember you are not protected. And there is always the need to protect yourself by respecting the barrier measures.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joseph Fokam, for being our guest this evening. The message is simple. Let us continue respecting the barrier measures to avoid any possibility of us getting infected with the coronavirus. Back to you, Esther Kima.
Thanks, Baldwin Summer, for that clarification. We continue with the public awareness for compliance with the barrier measures against the coronavirus pandemic from the Ministry of Communication. The government reminds the entire national community that the coronavirus pandemic has so far neither been defeated nor eradicated in Cameroon. The implementation of the National Response Strategy against COVID-19 prescribed by the President of the Republic, His Excellency Paul Biya, with a view to protecting the population from contamination and the spread of this pandemic continues, and all the actors of the response chain remain mobilized in the best possible way throughout the national territory. The government therefore urges all Cameroonians to continue to respect the key barrier measures prescribed, namely compulsory and systematic wearing of masks in public places, respect of physical distancing, regular hand washing with clean flowing water or hydroalcoholic gel. Finally, the government urges all citizens to show a sense of responsibility by complying with the said barrier measures, especially as a number of cases have been recorded in recent weeks at the national level and as the coronavirus pandemic is spreading more and more in several regions of the world, particularly in Europe and America. It is signed by the Minister of Communication, Government spokesperson Rene Emmanuel Sadi. On to these sad notes. The mortal remains of the late General Simon Pierre Dagafonangsu have been laid to rest in his native Yagua in the Far North region. The head of state was represented at the funeral by the Secretary of State in the Ministry of Defense in charge of the National Gendarmerie, Galax Etoga. Sylvester Atemken tells us more.
Profound moments of grief and compassion characterize the atmosphere in Yagua as personalities, family members and colleagues paid their last homage to the late Major General Simon Pierre Dagafonangsu. In a brief but solemn ceremony chaired by the personal representative of the head of state, the Secretary of State at the Ministry of Defense in charge of the National Gendarmerie, Galax Etoga, bowed to the mortal remains of the brave soldier in recognition of his loyal service to the state. The Major General also leaves a vacuum in his native Mayo Danai as well as his biological family.
He was a loving person, caring, and he had love.
Born in 1944 in Post-Maga in the Far North region, Major General Simon Pierre Dagafonangsu got enlisted in the Defense Forces in October 1961. He hailed from the then Cameroon Joint Military School, EMIAC. Upon graduation from EMIAC, he was immediately assigned to the Republican Guard as commander of the Honorary Squadron and was raised to the rank of a Major General on November 11, 2011. He leaves behind 2 children, 13 grandsons and 4 great-grandchildren.
On today's advertorial, Cameroon's electricity production and supply company, NEO, has offered medical equipment and anti-COVID-19 kits to the Douala General Hospital. Both structures use the occasion to sign a partnership agreement where the hospital will take charge of the management of medical and surgical emergencies of the energy supply company. Alphonse Abongwa reports from Douala.
Signatures penned down and medical equipment handed over that open a new page in the relationship between the Energy of Cameroon company NEO SA and the Douala Referral Hospital. The equipment offered by NEO constitute part of a plus 70 million CFA francs pack dedicated to fight the coronavirus pandemic.
All companies, and particularly big companies, have an obligation of social responsibility. It's the case for NEO. We want to be present with the Cameroonese all over the country, and this ceremony today is an example or a sign of this social responsibility that NEO bears.
The equipment are expected to contribute significantly in the reduction of mortality rate of victims of burns and electrical accidents in need of reanimation at the Douala Referral Hospital.
This equipment will go a long way to treating patients who have severe COVID. So this is necessary to evaluate all patients who come in. So this as well will be very important. On another note, after COVID, we'll be able to use this same equipment to take care of patients. As I gave in my lecture, in my speech, you see that we receive over 150 burns patients in this center every year. And most of these burns patients are being catered for in the sole burns unit in the Central African region. Most of these patients their care is being paid for by ENEO.
The Douala Referral Hospital, created since 1987, is the only health facility in the entire Central African sub-region that manages emergencies related to burns. The Director General of ENEO Cameroon was entreated to a guided visit of the reanimation unit.
In sports, the visiting CAF inspection team, led by the Deputy Secretary General Anthony Bafoué, has ended its mission in the country. Meantime, the Cameroon Football Professional League yesterday launched the 2020-2021 Elite One Football Championship in Cameroon at the Yaoundé Omisport Stadium. Baldwin Sama reports on both events, which show some dynamism in the football sector.
They came to Cameroon with one main intention: simply confirm the country's readiness in terms of sports infrastructure and lodging facilities ahead of the African Nations Championship. Visiting the different structures in Yaoundé, from the training grounds to the fields of play, the CAF delegation was impressed with what they saw and happy to notice that previous recommendations have been respected. Their satisfaction was telling, especially visiting sports and lodging facilities in Douala that left the CAF inspectors spellbound.
Really, congratulations for such a beautiful edifice. We are proud to be African.
They have confirmed Cameroon's readiness, and they are confident that after visiting Limbe and Boya, minor recommendations for improvements will be respected. With barely 2 months to the start of the African Nations Championship, last weekend's official start of the Elite One Football Championship in Cameroon sets the stage for a back-to-activity for most of our footballers. Good tidings, they say, for the country's image as Cameroon gets ready to host the 2021 African Nations Championship.
The head of state, Paul Biya, has reached out to the families of 7 children killed in the school massacre in KUMBA. Minister Paul Atanganji today handed over the assistance package and lit 7 candles at the school in memory of the dead. That will be all for this edition of the 7:30 News. More news comes up at 8:30 p.m. with Adel Mbala. I'll be back tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. God willing. Thanks for being with us. Stay tuned to our programs on CRTV. Good night.
In this connection, we should avoid stigmatizing.
CRTV News, ici, toute l'info.